Hi, today we're going to be cooking with beans, a can of beans, and this dish is a dessert, Pastel de Feijão. This dessert is from a town named Torres de Vedras, which means Towers of Vedras. There's a really old castle in that town built by the Moors in the 10th century, recaptured by the Portuguese in the 11th century, and the towers from that small castle is where this town gets its name from. The credit for this recipe is given to a person named Joaquina Rodriguez, and it was believed to be such a hit that it was often shipped daily to Lisbon for the people to enjoy there. But if you are in the town of Torres de Vedras, there is a famous pastry shop there called Fábrica, which means crown factory, and there they keep the old tradition of making this dessert. If you don't make it up there and you're in Lisbon, there's also a really modern take on this dessert in the area of Alfama, just a beautiful area of Lisbon. And that pastry shop is known as Fábrica do Pastel Feijão. And as you can see from these pictures, they really take a modern technique, not only on the look of it, but also there's kind of like a sugary crust on top of this pastry. Both of them are very highly rated. Maybe give them both a try. All right, so in a bowl, we want to add our 2 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, about 5 grams. Now you want to add 6 ounces of water. Maybe like a tablespoon less than a cup of water. Give that a little stir. Now some softened butter. You don't want to use melted butter or butter right out of your fridge, but a little soft butter. And I did break up the butter in pretty small pieces to make it easier to work in. Okay, now it's probably just easier to get your hands a little dirty and really work in that butter. And there's some butter chunks in there you could see, so you just want to work it enough, probably for maybe like 5 minutes by hand. You just don't want to see any big chunks of butter in there. You want to let it rest for at least 10 minutes. Okay, our dough is resting in the refrigerator. I have 1 can of beans that I opened and drained. I need 3/4 cups of beans for the recipe. And you could use like a potato masher or a ricer and just squash up your beans. Now we're going to add 2 cups of sugar, 16 ounces, to the 3/4 cups of water. We're dissolving the sugar. So you want to bring the sugar, if you have an instant read digital thermometer, up to about 225 to 230 degrees Fahrenheit. If you don't have a thermometer, what you want to do is put your sugar and your water together, mix them together, and then once it comes up to a boil, let it continue to boil at a very low simmer for about 3 minutes. Now we're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt to this sugar mixture. Okay, we're at 225. Okay, I set my syrup aside. Even if your tarts are ready to go, you need to let that syrup cool off for a little bit. Rest at least 10 minutes before incorporating your other ingredients. Okay, here's my dough. It feels nice and smooth, nice and elasticy, incorporated. I don't see any chunks of butter. I have my little tartlet shells. These are same tartlet shells that I use for pastéis de nata. I think they sell them on Amazon. I know from Rhode Island you also could get them in Portugal if you look up their website. And they don't stick too bad, but better safe than sorry. My dough feels really good. You can see it's not really sticking to my hands. If it did feel sticky, you could put a little more flour on your cutting surface. The technique I'm going to use to put the dough in the tartlet shells is the same thing they do with pastéis de nata. So kind of roll it into a tube shape and then put the dough in there and just kind of work it up the sides. And it should be fairly thin, like a millimeter thick. So it's a pretty thin dough. And I always like to get it just right above the rim if you can. And as you make this, again, my house is pretty warm, so I'm going to keep these in the refrigerator as I'm making them. And you just go with your thumbs in the middle and just kind of work the dough up the sides. I do post all of these recipes on my website. It's different from the YouTube channel. We'll go to justcookwithmichael.com. The recipes, I think they're better organized on the website. They're easier to print out. You could use this same technique if you are filling up like, the average size muffin trays that we have here to make like blueberry muffins. That would probably work also. So now for this recipe, I'm going to use 9 eggs total, but it's only 1 whole egg. And then 8 egg yolks. Right now we're going to finish up by mixing up the ingredients for our filling, the almond flour. This almond flour, that's just ground up almonds, so you could do it yourself if you can't find any at the store. Just grind up almonds very fine. And this is our syrup that's already cooling down. So I'll mix the almond flour into that. And I'll mix in our eggs into that. You just want to mix it together until it incorporates and forms up like a paste. Okay, now in this bowl I have equal parts sugar and flour. So there's about 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and I'm going to sprinkle that on top. Okay, now that we mixed the eggs and almond flour together, we want to mix in our bean puree. Okay, now you want to have your oven preheated to about 430 degrees Fahrenheit or 220 degrees Celsius. Now I poured the filling in an easy to pour container to fill these up. And now I have my ratio, 2 tablespoons of flour mixed with 2 tablespoons of sugar. And I'll sprinkle a little bit of that on top. That just gives it a little bit of a crunchy topping to it. Then right away it will go in an oven. I've seen people also use like a sieve. They'll pour it in a sieve and just kind of dust it over the entire top of it. Sprinkle with powdered sugar at the end when they've cooled off. Okay, I have a little extra dough, so I'm going to put 2 in a little muffin pan just to see how they come out. Okay, you can see they pop out of the tart shells pretty easily. You could dust these with powdered sugar too if you like. Look at that. Oh. I had a little bit of extra, so I made some in a muffin pan, and it looks like they came out pretty good. They obviously look different. Now you can make pastel de Feijão, add some sugar to your beans, and enjoy this great dessert. Now go cook for someone you love.